Hello, Garland Nixon here. We're hanging out with Jim Kavanaugh, and there's lots going on from things going on in Ukraine to Venezuela and all over creation, and the way that people view their governments have changed as a result of COVID. Let's talk. Hello, Garland Nixon here. We're hanging out with my good friend, Dr. Jim Kavanaugh. Jim and I have these great conversations all the time, and every now and then we share a tiny fraction of a discussion, a tiny piece of it with you. All right, let's get going. One of the things, and I'd say this, Charlie Kirk, the Charlie Kirk assassination, the Venezuelan drug boats, et cetera, and even historically, people who accepted the narrative of 9/11, but have since started to raise these questions again. Jim and I have talked about this. I argue that what happened during COVID, the totalitarian nature of the crackdown by our governments on people who just ask honest questions, who had intellectual curiosity, has changed the nature of how people view their governments and has changed that trust level for the good. Jim Kavanaugh, your thoughts?
Yeah, I think this is a very important point, and I don't think people want to talk about it. What happened with COVID, the whole COVID operation, really did undermine confidence in everything, because vaccine ideology, and I call it a vaccine ideology, which is vaccines are harmless magic bullets. There's nothing wrong, or there could be nothing wrong with vaccines. And even to think about that, and everybody grew up in everybody, unless you realize this, you're missing something. Everybody in the United States grew up with that. I grew up with that. And certainly since the passage of the Vaccine Safety Act in 1986, I think it was, where they immunized the vaccine companies, the more pharmaceutical companies, the media, the medical institutions, the academic institutions. Vaccines are just wonderful. They're harmless magic bullets. And that's literally what Jimmy Kimmel said at one point on our show. And anybody who questions vaccines in any way, shape, or form is a moron. First word that came out of your mouth. Anti-vaxxer, anti-scientific. And what happened with COVID was not just the vaccine, but it was they promoted this notion of what was going on with this virus, okay, which was false, and they knew it was false. They lied about it from beginning to end. They tried to hide the discussion about where it came from, okay, and it's clear it came from gain-of-function research at the Wuhan lab, which was traced back to North Carolina and Barrack, etc. Then they tried to make it, they put out stories that changed every day about masks. I thought masks were wonderful. Prima facie, it seems to me, yeah, wear a mask, it's great. Then you look into it a little bit and you realize there's been scientific studies about masks, and they show masks don't do any good for viruses. It's like chain link fence in a sandstorm, etc., etc., etc. Fauci himself said that on national television, and then 2 months later changed his mind. And that was not for scientific reasons, those were for political reasons. And then they put out this vaccine, and they said it's great, 90% effective. And they do this whole thing with relative rates of efficiency versus absolute rates. And it's 90% with relative rates. They had 20,000 people in one cohort that took the vaccine, 20,000 in another, and one person got it in one cohort and two got it in the other. So therefore it's 90% better. But that doesn't tell you absolute risk. The absolute risk reduction was like 0.8%. This is all a bunch of nonsense. In other words, there were lies. This was a bunch of lies, okay? And people gradually got to realize this. The vaccine did not prevent transmission. And then they mandated it. They forced you to take it, even though it didn't prevent transmission. And they knew it didn't prevent transmission. And everybody got, and then they politicized the whole thing. They politicized and stop. Sorry, but this was the Democrats who did this before. Well, Trump was in power when he was producing the vaccine. Kamala Harris, Andrew Cuomo, I'm not going to take that vaccine. Don't you trust the scientists at FDA? Not Trump scientists. Day after the election, Joe Biden wants you to take the vaccine. The same scientist, Fauci. Oh yeah, everybody's going to take the vaccine. If you don't take the vaccine, there's something wrong. You're a plague carrier. You can't go to work. They mandated it. 9 million people, I think, were forced out of their jobs. More millions were forced to change their jobs. People moved from one state to another to avoid the mandates, the forced administration of this vaccine, which didn't stop COVID and ends up being a really bad vaccine. And it is. And if you got to look at John Campbell and Agnes Dalgleish and what's going on with these vaccines, they created a brand new product, and you can watch the head of, I think it was Monsanto, Moderna.
But yeah.
This is a gene therapy, but if we'd called it a gene therapy, nobody would have taken it, so we called it a vaccine. This is a brand new product which forces the cells in your body to produce a toxic protein, and nobody knows. It goes all over your body. Nobody knows how long it's going to take. It goes into the endothelial cells, the lining of your bloodstream of your blood vessels. It's just a terrible product. And economically, they destroyed the country. It closed 40% of black businesses. They had to put $6 trillion into the economy to shut the damn economy down for no reason. And at the end of the day, Bill Gates said, "Oh yeah, it was like the flu, except maybe a little worse for seniors." This was a pack of lies, and it affected people's lives. People were thrown out of their jobs, and anybody who raised a question of it, if you were a doctor, if you were a scientist, you were a doctor, you lost your license, you lost your board certification, you got kicked out, you lost your job in academia, and this was terrible. I wrote a 10,000 word article about this just when the mandates were coming in, saying this is ridiculous. These things are filled with research and links to notes, but this is not from their mouths. They were saying it, that this is not if it doesn't stop transmission, there's absolutely no justification for mandating this. This is about control, and this is not about health at all. At any rate, and I got a doctor, one of my high school classmates, the high school that Anthony Fauci went to, one of my high school classmates, a doctor in a Catholic hospital. I hope that Kavanaugh ends up dying. I only wish I could see him die in agony of COVID. That's the kind of crap you got from people for just saying something that was true. And so this opened people's minds up, because precisely if I can, then now people are looking at more vaccines and the whole vaccine ideology and the whole vaccine program more critically. But the point you're making and I'm making here is that, generally speaking, this cracked the nut of an ideology that was sacred. And suddenly people are saying, well, if they could be lying to me about that, if they could have gone to this effort to try and force me to inject myself with a drug that I didn't know was going to happen, it causes heart attacks and clots and myocarditis and pericarditis and pericarditis. And so they did. What else I have to be able to interrogate everything else that I know. I can do that. I feel legitimate doing that now. And the social media venues are there and outlets are there where you can interrogate everything. So people, certainly the Democrats don't want to go near this. Nobody really wants to go near this. What COVID did to this, the destruction that it did, the economic, the political, the ideological destruction that it did, it burned a path and it upended everything. And people don't want, and for people, and it's why we have this crazy situation. I generally think that the program that RFK is on is correct and good, but of course he got himself hooked up to Trump, who's an ass, and Trump and RFK himself is an ass for 1,000 other things. Now you have this situation in the United States where it's certainly, forget about Democrat and Republican. Some Democrats do some good things, and some Republicans do some good things. And on particular issues, you got to look at particular issues. Marjorie Taylor Greene has been pretty good on Israel. She's terrible on everything else. Kennedy, as I say, is good on vaccines and health. That'd be terrible about Israel. Blah blah. So you have to now do this, and everybody's going to come to this realization. So you have now questioning of all kinds of things that were taken for granted as taboo subjects. We have to treat them as noli me tangere, not sacred. You can't touch this subject, or it's the third rail of your mind. You'll turn into it's not just that you're fearing what other people do. People really internalize the idea that if I go there, if I touch this subject, if I raise this question, that means I'm a moron, I'm an anti-scientific, or I'm a conspiracy theorist, or now forget about it. Everybody understands you have to interrogate everything. So they're not getting away with what they got. Going to 9/11, I didn't see Tucker's thing on 9/11, but he did a 5-part series on 9/11. The stories don't add up. Every one of them. James Lee, very good. I did a thing about how you get the same basic story of all these assassinations. Oh, there's a low nut. Oh, anybody who questions is no good. Oh, this people died, that people died, and this question and that question is. They lied about 10 things, but it doesn't make any difference. You can't ask anything about it. Going from JFK to MLK to RFK Jr. I mean, RFK Jr. again. That's a great. I mean, and people were getting mad at RFK Jr. RFK Senior. People were getting mad at RFK Jr. for saying Sirhan didn't do it, didn't kill my father, and people getting mad at that. And it's crazy. You watch it, you say, "Oh, I see this guy shooting," but he actually didn't kill him. I mean, he was shot from behind at close range with powder burns on his neck, so it was within an inch of his neck, and Sirhan was never behind him. So it's not possible but this is something. People are get again attacked for even thinking about it. People just close their own minds off from thinking about it. So you have 100 things now, and everybody realizes you can never take the official story for granted. And COVID in the last 5 years, 6 years, COVID was a big part of that. People got sick. People took this damn thing and they got fired from their jobs. They had to give it to their kids. Some people moved in order not to have to give it to their kids, and that was the right thing to do. And so, this is a dangerous story. Now you've got articles in the why are all this young people getting cancer in the Midwest? And suddenly, what could it be? What happened in the past 5 years that suddenly young people who never got bowel cancer and before are getting cancer? But they still won't go there. They won't talk about it, and it's a problem, because when you get these things, and if the people who did that to us during COVID don't acknowledge it and say, I was wrong, that was really bad what I did, making you take that drug, firing you from your work, for firing nurses for not taking a drug that they knew was wrong, and that we knew everybody knew wasn't going to prevent transmission. At the very least, that's the very least of it. So if you're not willing to say, oh, I did that and I was really wrong, and that was a bad thing, I'll never do that again, then I don't trust you. And nobody should trust you. That's why nobody trusts anybody. I'm not going to trust anybody who doesn't say that, because I was prevented from seeing my children and grandchildren because I couldn't go to Canada, and that was, I didn't take the damn drug. So I made that choice, but I wasn't in a position where I was going to get fired, and people did. So, and kids had to go to school. This was terrible. And if you're not willing to stand up to that, so you go back to all these other things. It's kind of, if you told a lie, if you were 10 years after JFK's assassination, and you had these people who had lied about this, who had just completely lied and changed testimony in the Warren Commission report, and you just don't say, oh, that's all right, let's forget about it and move on. No, who did that, and why did they do it? And I want to hear from them. I want them to take account of it. RFK, the same thing. MLK, again, a whole phony story about that. A whole phony story. I urge people to look at I think his name is William Pepper, MLK's family's lawyer, who's wrote a great book about it. MLK turned out was killed in a hospital. He was killed in a hospital. Believe it or not, he was probably going to die from the shot.
Well, they forget. But the thing is, people think that he died on the spot. They don't realize he was alive when he went to the hospital. Now, the allegations are that he was smothered or something in a pillow, but it has to be something shady, because everybody thinks he died on the spot and he was still alive. But let me add this about the whole COVID thing and why it's important.
So, what I'm saying is all of these things, the closer you are to them, the more people that are still alive and still in politics who are involved in them, those people have to be held to account.
Yes.
Or nobody's going to trust them. You can't just, I faked and lied about the Martin Luther King assassination, but let's just forget about that and move on.
Now, let me throw this at you, Jim. There's another important part here, and this is important. Something you said, I started taking notes of it because this is critical, I think, particularly today regarding Ukraine and foreign policy, things like that, and the drug boats, Venezuela, right? Okay. Basically, COVID came out, and if you remember, the you know what came out. And what we were told is, remember this, if you get it, you're not going to get COVID. That was we were told that once you get that, you're good. Absolutely stops it. Rachel Maddow, it stops it on the spot. Here's my point. This is not even about COVID, but it's about this. A narrative came out. Now, the facts betrayed the narrative. They started to have to use these words. The words they used was breakthrough infections. Right? And what is a breakthrough or whatever? It is, well, you got the vaccine, but for some reason you still got it. And that's weird. Well, it wasn't weird. It was reality. It was science tells us that's data that we can use to get information. It comes out and you say, I think it's going to stop it, even though, let's face it, they already knew. But let's just say for the sake of argument, we think it's going to stop it. That's the narrative. If you take this, you won't get COVID. Now, people take it. And some of them still get COVID. Okay, that's fine because we're still science. The science says we've learned something. How do we change? How do we change our narrative? How do we change what we do based on this new information, based on this data? Some people still get it. Maybe we can figure out what percentage they get it. Maybe we can figure out, is it less, is it more? And of course, we can look at the possible side effects and we can say based on the chances that you might still get it, even if you get it, and based on the side effects, should you or shouldn't you get it based on your age, the probabilities of death, those things, probabilities, that's science, right? They didn't change the narrative. So the science now said, if you get the vaccine, there's still a chance that you could get it. We don't know what those chances were. Could be 100% under some circumstances. Could be even greater in some circumstances. But we don't know any of that for sure because we couldn't get the data. Okay. But the regulations, the rules, and the narrative continued when the data changed. So the data said, I can get this jab. I can still get the virus. I can go home and I'm still shedding the virus with at least as much as everyone else, and I can give it to grandpa. So I know I can get the jab and I can still get COVID and go home and give it to grandpa. But what they said was, you've got to get the jab. Why? To protect grandpa. Well, wait a minute. But the data, that sounded good at first, but the data tells me that I can still give it to grandpa. So that particular line of reasoning is not valid anymore. And you know what they said? Get the jab. Why? To protect grandpa and your family. But wait a minute. So what we saw here was, even though the data and the science changed, the narrative and the government policies that were aligned with that narrative still acted as though we didn't have the new scientific data. And we were told, follow the science. But this was the opposite of science.
Absolutely. It's the opposite of science, as you say. You know,
can I add one other thing before I go? So let me tie it all together. So we're told we've got to go to Venezuela or do this or that because of drug boats. Okay. Do we have any data that shows that they're drug boats? Nothing provided.
Nothing.
We didn't have any data that showed this was protecting grandpa. Okay, what are you going to do? Now you've killed some people, you've captured a few of them lived, and you just sent them back. But I thought they were drug dealers. If they were drug dealers and you were here to stop drug dealing, you're going to prosecute them or whatever. But notwithstanding, we don't, all the other stuff, we don't have jurisdiction on the international waters, but forget that. Yeah. If your narrative is we're doing this to stop drugs, you got a couple drug dealers. How are you going to deal with it? Are you going to interrogate them? Are you going to find out more about the drug? Dig deep into the fentanyl ring coming from Venezuela.
Yep.
The data does not align with your argument. Now, let's continue. It is We got to go do this and that for Ukraine. Why? Because there was an unprovoked invasion. Okay, well, let's look into that. Oh, wait a minute. Even the head of NATO admits, well, the Russians didn't want expansion. And guess what? We got Sweden and Finland. They didn't want expansion. We got expansion. We might be losing Ukraine, but we got something. Well, wait a minute. You told me that it was an unprovoked attack, and that it had nothing to do with NATO expansion. But your policies can, and I go on and on. So in all of these instances, what people have learned is this: there is a narrative. The policies reflect the ideological positions. They reflect the rhetorical positions of this narrative. But no matter how much evidence you get to the contrary, you continue with these policies. So after a while, what we realize is this: those policies are unrelated to reality. They're only related to a narrative. And no matter what data you get against the narrative, you're going to continue with these policies. You want stinking oil, but people are onto it. Anyway, Jim.
Yeah, look, that's exactly right. The ostensible reasons given are never the real reasons, and the data proves it. And what with the COVID thing, they didn't know right away, but they knew before they instituted the mandates. They knew it didn't stop transmission. That's the case, and so that factoid alone is enough to. And the ostensible reasons for public health, to flatten the curve, blah, blah, all this stuff. The real reason was pharmaceutical companies have captured the agencies. They've captured medical and political agencies, and they're making billions of dollars. It's like the Defense Department, and leftists know, oh, we're in these wars to sell weapons more than anything else. The point was to sell vaccines. That was the point. And the point with, so you have a narrative which is based on, oh, we're going to bring freedom and democracy to Venezuela. Oh, we're going to kill the drug lords, whatever it is. And there's the data absolutely does not demonstrate that. It demonstrates that has nothing to do with it. And everybody knows, and the Americans gave the same excuse for every intervention in Iraq, in Syria, in Libya. Okay, oh, we're bringing freedom and democracy. Baloney. Didn't care about that one bit. That's not the real reason. Is something else. It's American imperialism. It's Zionism. It's Rubio's anti-communism here.
It's oil.
It's oil. Well, but I push back that again.
That ain't all of that's part of it. I'm just saying that, but it's part of it. It's your point being, it is not drug. What you're telling us is stinking lies, and I do not believe that some plane can fly into the side of a building, explode in 1,500-degree heat, and a guy that was in the middle of that plane, that his passport, like a butterfly, fluttered out of the plane and somehow fluttered down to earth and landed on the ground. And somebody walked up and said, "Oh, what is that?" Unsinged, a magic passport. It's really, you know what I mean? These stories are all cockamamie stories, never make sense.
And some other building, 2 blocks away falls down. That didn't get hit by a plane.
Hours later.
And reported to have fallen down an hour before it did. So you have all of these stories, and these are important stories. They change the direction of history. They change the direction of the world. And we're just meant to say, doesn't make any difference. We don't have to think about that, because, there's a kind of Chomskyan, also kind of historical inevitability narrative, which is, the major forces in the world are not changed. But no, these things are inflection points in history. And it's important it's important for the sake of your own integrity to know what's going on, and not to allow yourself to say, oh, this important event in history, I don't really care what actually happened there. I'll let them, not just that I don't care about it, but I'm going to let them get away with a false story about it. Okay. It's not just, oh, we must know the absolute truth, but it's no, we must understand why that the dominant narrative that's been put out about it is false, and why they put that narrative out about it, and who did, and why they have the power to, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So it's not just a question of knowing things for its own sake. It's a question of insisting to yourself that you're going to understand the forces that are at work in history that put forward these narratives, why they put them forward, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So it's not unimportant, but it's now a case where, as you say, the presumption of credibility of the official narrative is completely lost, and that's a good thing.
Well, and here's the other part. We could go on and on and on. I argue this, that I saw the beginning of the end, and that's why I guess I can blame Obama partially with this whole Smith-Munson Act and saying it's okay for the CIA to bullcrap us. The big thing, I could go on and on and on, but let's go to recent times. The big one that I started to open my eyes was the whole Russia gate hoax. Mm-hmm. When I saw, because, okay, at that point, it became obvious to me. I remember someone calling in and saying, to my radio show, I think Mueller's got him this time. Mm-hmm. I think Mueller's I think he's got the goods on Trump this time. And I said, I would sooner believe that Donald Trump jumped off the top roof of the White House, flapped his arms, and safely flew to the ground than I would that the Russians were like, Donald Trump, that's the guy.
Yeah, exactly.
We choose him. He's the perfect guy. And they did it like back in 1987.
Yeah.
And somehow in 87, they said, Trump's the guy. One of these days, he's going to be president. And he's our man. He's brilliant. And then Donald Trump. Now, there's no possible thing you can do that NSA can't intercept. You can, yell out the window. They got you, right? Everything, all my computers, everything. I know. I don't even worry about it anymore because I know everything's bugged, right? But somehow Donald Trump developed a way to communicate with the Kremlin.
Yeah.
That NSA couldn't pick up. They couldn't intercept it. They couldn't pick it up. They had no way. They knew he was doing it. But that doggone brilliant Donald Trump came up with some technological, ingenious manner to communicate with the Kremlin. And NSA couldn't pick it up. They had to look around for breadcrumbs everywhere else because these secret communications, they could never find. And I'm like, you got to be kidding me, guys. You believe this? But I saw the ability of them, and this is what we saw during COVID, to turn it to an ideological discussion.
Yeah.
If you believe this, you're one of us, the liberal Democrat people. You believe this, you're one of us. If you don't believe it, you're a Russian bot, you're a Trump lover, you're this. And then what happened during COVID? As soon as I'm like, I don't know if I believe the story I'm being given. Something's amiss here. Oh, you're a Trumpster.
Yeah, I know.
The game became, you're a right-wing conservative. What was the term they used on us? That you're a what was the thing that would always come out and they would say follow the plan? Remember that? Supposedly you're a QAnon crazy conspiracist. You're a right winger. If you say something seems funny about the Seth Rich thing, what the heck about I don't know about this COVID thing? You know what I mean? It became, I don't care. And you're in academia. I knew people who were PhDs that believed things that were so preposterous. And then I would say to them, well, what about this? And they get that. And you saw that look in their face of cognitive dissonance. Yeah. Cognitive dissonance. And you'd say, well, that couldn't be true because of this.
Yeah.
And they'd go like, oh, crap. It doesn't make sense, but I can't possibly believe it because now it's no longer science. It's no longer data. It is, I am an ideologically part of the Democratic Party, and I got to believe that. And if you don't believe that, you're a Trump-loving lunatic, QAnoner.
Yeah, well, it's blue MAGA, red nut. It's blue QAnon. It's blue cult. It's cultish behavior and it's cultish thinking. And this is so dangerous that we've gotten into that. You can't discriminate between what you think is true or not true, other than outside of these tribal identities, which is crazy. And you're right. I mean, Russiagate. I mean, they went through this, but this is what we got. This is why we have Donald Trump. How often did we say it? As you say, nobody believed. Chuck Schumer didn't believe that Donald Trump was working for, that Vladimir Putin had picked Donald Trump to be his guy to overthrow the government of the John Brennan, Clapper. They didn't believe that. They played the liberal Democrats. They knew they were lying. They knew it was a bunch of bull, and they played the liberal Democrats with it, because the whole purpose of it was to keep progressives and budding leftists in the Democratic corral. And they didn't have any programs they weren't offering. Because in fact, they spent all of that time trashing the one program that everybody would have loved, Medicare for All, which they're now paying the price for. But at any rate, the purpose of that was not to find the truth about Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin, or show you that but it was to keep the Democratic constituency in the Democratic corral. And they just put out a bunch of nonsense. And we said it 1,000 times on your show. You know, all they're doing is they're obsessing with Donald Trump, and they're turning him into this great figure of the anti-establishment. And they're going after him with these political persecutions, which were obviously political. Even Andrew Cuomo said it was a political persecution. And what's going to happen? And when he gets into, or someone likes him gets into power, they are paving the road for someone else to take these powers and use them against me. And that's exactly what we're seeing. So yeah, again, the ability to people, but it's with something like COVID and with this vaccine ideology that people are really invested to. Oh my God, this is my intellectual. This means I'm an intellectually progressive person and scientifically minded person to believe in vaccines and believe that what I'm being told about COVID therefore must be right. And that really shatters people. And things were politicized in the stupidest of ways, and people got caught up in it. And now what's a good thing is that, as you say, all of these narratives now, people, the default of giving credibility to the establishment narrative is gone. In fact, it's the opposite. You're going to have to, I'm going to tend to disbelieve you unless you give me a lot more evidence than this, because usually you can't give a lot more evidence. But so this is we're looking, sorry, the Venezuelan drug boats, Obama in the Libyan campaign, the drone campaigns, Obama. The same today in the New York Times. Oh, can the War Powers Act be used against Trump? They're using the same argument the Obama administration used. Oh, there's no American boots on the ground. We can do this forever. Blah blah. They voted. They actually had a vote against a War Powers Act vote against Obama, and he still went and did it in Libya. Okay, so what the justifications Trump is using now, the same justifications Obama used. Okay. Cutting SNAP, Obama cut SNAP by $8 billion. Okay. So, and it's the same, what's going on and why there's this paralysis with the shutdown is because everybody's working with the same damn taxpayer money ideology. How are we going to pay for this? I want my taxes. I don't want my taxes feeding poor people. Well, your taxes aren't feeding poor people. You got to get over this. Taxes don't pay for that. They don't pay for anything. And if you don't understand that, and we don't get by this, but the Democrats and the Republicans and leftists and progressives, we got to tax the rich in order to pay for things. No, you don't. You're not going to pay for anything with that. You don't pay for anything with that. We don't need their money to pay for that. This is a decision we make. The workers pay. That's why guys who make $30,000 don't want their taxes going to poor people who are starving. They're not. You're not paying for that. Okay. First thing you got to realize, you're paying too many taxes. Because the biggest taxes on your $30,000 paycheck are the payroll taxes for Social Security and Medicare, which are unnecessary and should be abolished because we don't need those taxes to pay for that. And if we don't start thinking about that and talking about that in the right way, you're never going to lose, because they're all actually behind the scenes. This is the fundamental of it. They all believe that the government is something we have to control the spending in some way. That's because where are we going to get the money? This is craziness. This is wrong. It's not craziness, but it's
well. You know what, Jim? Every time they say we want to build we want to invade a new, you know what they didn't do? Hey, we've got to Argentina. They need 40 billion. Did they say where are we going to find? They just printed. We need this. They just printed. The problem is that instead of printing X amount of dollars, if you're going to print it, okay, you print X amount of dollars to get rid of the homeless. That's $20 billion to deal with homelessness. Done. Yeah. Instead, they print 800 billion. They print $1 trillion. Then they print 100 billion more. Then they print 200, and they continually, and they just tell you something about taxes where they print money unlimited. They just give it to steal it all themselves. I don't know if you saw it. Did you know this? Just before Biden got out of office, they distributed $331 billion amongst NGOs, and the money just disappeared. 331 billion. See, that's the real, is the unlimited amount of money that they steal, which brings me right to Ukraine. Again, to me, it's the biggest. This is the big one when it comes to money laundering. They got to keep this thing going. The money laundering is unbelievable. And I might add, it exposed the fraud of modern day liberalism. It exposed how modern day liberalism has just become totalitarian fascism. Because what are they saying? Oh, we've got to go help these nice little guys that are there standing up for democracy. Really? And what about the guys that are goose stepping around with Hitler tattoos all over them? Well, you know, there's Nazi. No, before it was punch a Nazi. Biden literally said, yes, I'm running. Why? Because of Charlottesville. When I saw those Nazis, I knew I had to become president. Really? Well, if there was Nazis in Charlottesville, it probably wasn't, because you'd have been sending them weapons.
Yeah.
So that what we get is these contradictions of modern day politics. I am a liberal. I'm here to hug. Oh, wait, there's a trans person. There's a black person. There's a person indigenous of color, or whatever the hell, right? We got to go help them. We got to go hug them. Don't say anything too bad about those people or anything about them, or dispute who is a woman and whether women or men or whoever can menstruate. Don't even talk about that stuff, or I'll have to deplatform you. But these guys over here that are goose stepping around on Russia's border, you know, there's Nazis everywhere. They can make excuses for the most vile people, for genocide. What about that? They're genociding people. Well, you know, something about October 7th.
Yeah.
So it has exposed the vile, contradictory nature of the Democratic Party and modern day liberalism.
Well, yeah, look, one of the things I wrote an article about Antifa, criticizing Antifa. I said, yeah, Antifa goes to these right-wing protests, and they want to, you know, sucker punch someone in the street, you know, blah, 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 blah. But if Antifa was really radically anti-fascist and didn't give a damn, they would be at Obama's talk. They would be at Biden's talk. They would be at Hillary Clinton's talk. They would be trashing that. Those people are actually supporting fascists in Ukraine. They've brought Hitlerian fascism back onto the political stage in Europe. You know, the Proud Boys didn't do that. Hillary Clinton, Barack Obama, Joe Biden, they did that. Okay. So, you know, where, you know, the Antifa was controlling itself and limiting itself in its anti-fascism was not, it was only Republican anti-fascism.
It's a liberal anti-fascism. That's all it is. It's liberal bullcrap to pretend like you're pushing back against what the liberals call fascism. Yeah. It's a fraud. And to some extent, I think it's probably captured, and there's a lot of government operatives all in it.
But what I'm saying is, so there's and as you say, look, there's nothing that's more starkly contradictory than the liberal, humanist, democratic, equal rights perspective supporting Zionism, which they've done for 70 years. So that is the starkest contradiction there can be. And what we've seen 100% now over the past 2 years, they cannot ignore, is Zionism, is colonialism. It's killing and expelling the indigenous population. And that's what it has to do. That's not an excess. That's the essence of Zionism. It's not an excessive thing. That's what they did in 1948. And everybody who's been going around for the past 77 years saying, oh, I'm a real liberal, but I support the state of Israel because it's a wonderful thing that there's a state of Israel, supported what the Zionists did in 1948, which is what they've been doing for the past 2 years in Gaza. So, you know, this is something that's been a contradiction. And yes, again, there's no question about it. The fascism is The Banderite fascism, which is Hitlerite fascism, is predominant. It's the dominant ideology in Western Ukraine. The Eastern Ukrainians wanted no part of it. They didn't vote for it. It was an undemocratic insurrection that kicked Yanukovych out of power after they made a deal. After all these countries made a deal, we'll have new elections. Yanukovych made a deal to have new elections, and the Americans and the French and the Germans and the Russians said, okay, we'll make, and the next day, the fascists came in and kicked him out of power. And so this is, and the people of Eastern Ukraine didn't want any part of that, and they shouldn't want any part of that. So they began to fight against it. Okay. And that's what what's been going on. It's, and again, we have narratives that people cling to. And sure, I mean, the Democrats are still clinging to the Ukraine narrative. Oh, Zelensky is a hero of democracy and we have to support him. This is just nonsense. Okay. All of this is nonsense. And they don't have any, they can't really excuse themselves at this point for not seeing this. And, any Democrat who doesn't fundamentally 100% oppose what's going to an attack on Venezuela, if they just come out and say, oh, the Maduro's a dictator, this is nonsense. Nobody cares. Nobody, the Trump administration, and nobody in the Democratic Party cares whether Maduro is a dictator or not. And that has nothing to do with whether we should attack the country or not. It really doesn't. And it's not really the issue that's on the table. So unless people get serious about this and show us that they are willing to be intellectually consistent and ethically consistent and explain themselves on it in an intellectually honest way, nobody's going to believe them or take the victory. That's why it's great people are going to Hakeem Jeffries and talk, well, how much money taking AIPAC? And it's great people are going to J.D. Vance and going, why are we giving so much money? What about America First? Why are we giving so much money to Israel? These are questions that everybody's got to be constantly asked. And they constantly got to be put on the hot seat and not allowed to have these phony, well, let's put that aside for a moment. No, we're not going to put aside an invasion of another country. We're not going to put aside genocide. We're not going to do that. There's no progressive against imperialism. There's no progressive against Zionism. And that's over. So, and there's no America First and Zionism.
Right. Yeah. I think what we're looking at now is a situation, and I see it in the Charlie Kirk situation. Because there was a time they could do whatever the hell they wanted, and they would just say, "Okay, we're doing it," and people would say, remember this? And I always bring this up. It's hilarious to me. People, because I was at that point, I was still in law enforcement, and I was the commander at that point of the. And I'm embarrassed to say this. I'm moving, so I was going through some stuff from my old job. You have plaques that were on the wall. I threw some of it right in the trash, and one of them was a congratulatory thing for when I was the head of the Homeland Security Division during some operation we did. And I'm like, oh, that was such bullshit. I threw it in the trash, right? But my point being, I kind of lost my point there for a second, but I hate when I do that. I'm ADD, and when I get sidetracked, I'll forget what the hell I'm talking about. But the bottom line, I think what we're getting at here is this, I was going to mention the Charlie Kirk thing, and that is people who traditionally did believe things within their own ideology even. Okay, we're all Democrats, we all believe this. We're all Republicans, we believe that. And they had those people really tight, right? So now this Charlie Kirk thing happens. And you see all of these people the second it happened. Rather than, oh, okay, boy, that's terrible. Let me see what the government has to say and what the news says. Remember, CNN, 1991, 2003, they made a fortune. Why? Because as soon as the war started, the invasion, the attack started, everybody turned on it. And there's old, what's his name? The guy that was the voice of the Lion King. This is CNN. Okay, let's see what whoever has to say. And you knew the names and all. Anybody turning on that bullshit. They're like, let me go online and see what Garland Nixon has to say. Let's see what Tucker Carlson. Let's see what Candace Owens has to say. Nobody trusts those people anymore. So Charlie Kirk happens. And people that used to say, oh, I'm a Republican, let me turn on Fox News. Because they know Fox News is going to say, well, there was a lone shooter. The guy was a trans. He had a gun. Happened to be an old Mauser 98 or something. He on and off of roofs, changing clothes, using screwdrivers. It's just amazing. And now people are like, yeah, this is a bunch of bullshit. Let me see what it is. And now people are turning over rocks, and every rock they turn over from every rock they turn over for the Charlie Kirk thing, there's a Star of David under it. I'll just put it like that. Isn't it? No, that would be Jewish. Let me change it to Zionist. There's an Israeli flag under it,
which is a Star of David.
Your thoughts on your thoughts on this conversation? What's happening? Candace Owens, put that all together, Jim.
Well, I think we have. Look, for me, it started with the JFK assassination. Yeah, I mean, it's just, and it's a good thing. I mean, people don't trust, and they shouldn't trust. It's untrustworthy. But the terrible thing behind it all is that it's hard to see how you can build a polity in which trust is possible. That's the problem. Not that you mistrust this or that story. That's generally a good thing. Always be suspicious and skeptical. But you also have to have a social polity, a society in which you're not constantly afraid that you're being tricked. You know what I mean? And you're not constantly being tricked. And where powers that be are under your control, where the ability to get data, the ability to find out what's going on is under your control in some way. You trust that I can find out what I'm not being told, if I'm not being told it. You trust that there may be some things that are good reason not to be told if I'm not told it. You within limits. You trust that major things that are happening in the world and going to war, okay, closing down the government, assassinating people in public in the middle of the day, political assassinations in the middle, that those kinds of things. You have the ability to understand and to know that the investigation about that is being done reasonably. You have the ability to verify that in some way. You have the ability to know that I'm in control of the people who are in control of that investigation. So all of this is what's missing, okay? The political control of the country and of all these institutions and apparatuses is in the hands of some other people. You see, it's not even in the hands of Donald Trump. You see that, right? So there's a ruling class, and they rule behind the scenes through these institutions. And we need to have a society in which the working class, the majority of people, actually man and control, not just sit back and watch and say, "Oh, is this right or is that?" But they're in it. Your leaders are your leaders. They are not wealthy people. They're not your leaders because they got $500 million or $500 billion. They're leaders because you know them and you've heard them and you've trusted them for years and you elected them to position X and position Y, and you see what the people they're working with in this situation, and you have a means of checking on it. You have a means of saying, "Give me the answer to this. Tell me why I'm not hearing this. Tell me either what's going on here, or why you can't tell me it's going on, and it better make sense to me when you tell me that." And that's absolutely not what's happening with the Charlie Kirk situation. And the people on the right are realizing it. We voted for Donald Trump because he was America first. We voted for, all of a sudden, no. We voted for Kash Patel because he had a great podcast. He told me he was going to release the Epstein files. This was the most important thing in the world. Oh, no. And Charlie Kirk, the magic neck. Look at this crazy text thing. And we know who did it, and don't talk about it. And if you talk about it, it's bad for the family, just what they did with Seth Rich. So this is stuff. This fundamentally, this goes back to who's in control politically in the country and of all the institutions. And it's not the ordinary people, it's the ruling class.
Yeah. Let me tell you. And I've told this story. Hold on, here we go. And I'll even show a picture of the guy. Wait a minute, here we go. Let me show you a picture of the guy. To talk about how our system works, and his family and everybody can sue me if I'm lying. This is a guy named Lynn Moodispaw. right?
Yeah.
What's interesting about Lynn Moodisbaugh? I met Lynn Moodisbaugh in 2006. He was like one of our top ACLU donors at Maryland. And I sat at the table at this event that was the major donors table. And I got to sit up there and talk with him, right? And Lynn and I had a nice talk. And it was fun. And we talked about top politics. And back then, you know, we had a good old time. Oh, we laughed and we talked. It was a blast for an hour. Lynn gave me his number. These past the late Lynn Moodisbaugh. He says, man, you ever think about running for office, Garland? I'm like, not really. He goes, give me a call. I can help you. Okay. So I didn't really. He says, I'm working on selling my company. Me working on selling a company right now. And it's going to take me a few weeks, but we'll talk and we'll meet afterwards. Okay. I wasn't interested. A couple of weeks later, I talked to a woman who was the ACLU executive director. And I told her, she goes, oh, yeah, Lynn Moodisbaugh, he's one of our big donors, like big donors. I go home, I look it up. Lynn Moodisbaugh, he sold his company, the Essex Corporation, to Lockheed Martin for $587 million. And he had owned it for many years. And what I found out, and you know what that company did? Cybersecurity. That's his company. And all he did was then he started another company called KeyW. And I was following that. And he would just go out and buy up a bunch of tech companies and stick them all together till they were one. You know the game, right? He was a billionaire. And I often thought to myself, that guy was a billionaire, defense contractor. I would have been nothing but a puppet.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? He looked at me and for whatever reason, he said, I think that I was younger, you know, it was 2006. I was young and I was full of energy and vitality and all that stuff, you know, wore a nice suit, got a haircut, spoke the Queen's English well. He looked at me and said, there's a young black guy there.
Yeah. Well,
he could
Obama too.
Right. Okay. And, you know, I often thought to myself, that's the way the game works. If Lynn Moodisbaugh said to the Maryland Democratic Party, this is my guy, Garland Nixon.
Exactly.
We got an open seat in Congress. I'd like to see him in that seat. How much does it take? Well, if you gave us $5 million, $5 million, make it 8.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm elected.
Yep.
The entire Democratic Party says Garland Nixon's my guy. And you know what he says? You know, Garland, you need a little better lifestyle. We got a house for you, on the water. I've got this business. I'd like you to be the CEO of this business. They set you up.
Yep.
And then I'd say, but I want Medicare for all, and I want this, and you chase all that stuff. Do whatever you want in Congress. Go around and do all that. Every now and then they will call you though. Hey, Garland, yeah, we got this bill about cybersecurity going through.
Yeah.
I'm really need that to go through. You just vote on that. You do the rest of that Medicare for all. Do whatever you want. I don't care the rest of the time. But that particular bill right there, could you help me out on it? I realize, hell, that's the game. Of course, if somebody said they'll give you a girlfriend, oh, the honey pot is there. That's done. Because then they can get the tape of you. And if you ever say no, there's 10 honey pots. They don't care. Put them all in the room at the same time. Run around and cover yourself in Crisco. We don't care because we're filming it all.
Okay.
And if you ever go wrong, you know what I mean? So I can tell that. There's a picture of the guy. I can give his name. God rest his soul, because it's all true. Yeah. But again, it's what we're talking about. What people are realizing is the system is a fraud. That those people in Congress now, they know. A lot of them are looking. They'll say, what about genocide? And you'll see Hakeem Jeffries and these guys go. They know they're wrong. They know they're rotten, but they're all owned. Bottom line is, look at Kash Patel. Yeah, what about this Charlie Kirk thing? Oh, geez, yeah. Oh, man. How about those Bears? I think they got a nice young quarterback. Anything. But people are looking at Kash Patel saying, we're being bullshitted. There's something rotten in Denmark here. What the hell? Anyway, Jim.
Yeah, look, that's what you do. When you want running for office, you got to go to the donors. You got to be interviewed by the donors. I wrote a thing about Tom Hayden, the great SDS radical from the 60s, and he said that the thing that haunted him the most, that he was most worst about, when he was running for state assembly in California, for state assembly, he was taken by the California Senator Berman at the time, Howard Berman, and he was taken to the Israeli consulate in Los Angeles. He had to be vetted by the Israeli consulate in Los Angeles before he was going to be allowed to run for state office in California. So you're vetted by the donors. You get someone like you can go out, you can be in a bar, have dinner, a bunch of people say, hey, Jim Cameron, you should run for office. Hey, you got some great ideas. Let's run for. So what's your next step there going from the 10 guys in the bar or whatever to run for office? You go to the Democratic committee in town and you say, well, I'd like to run for office. And look, they're going to bring you to the donors. They're going to sit you down with the local businessmen. They're going to, first of all, and blah, blah, blah. And they're going to sit you down with the existing congressperson, the existing senator, and they're going to start vetting you on certain things, Israel being number one, every level. And they're going to start, but you're going to be introduced into that circle of, okay, local capitalists, local businessmen, the guys who own the car dealerships, etc. They're the ones who are the donors to the party. Then you go, as you move up the ring. And what everybody knows now, and Mr. Obama demonstrated this 150%, it's deferred bribery. Okay, all right. I'm here to protect you from the pitchforks. That's what Obama said to the banksters. I'm standing between you and the pitchforks. He knew that if he stood between them and the pitchforks, end of day after his thing, he's going to have his hundreds of millions of dollars of net wealth. And they'll make sure of it. They'll buy all his books. They'll all be bought in the minute it's sold. Whoever writes them, they'll buy them. And so you know that even if you're not getting, you can benefit from knowing certain things about stocks and doing stock trading. But you know that the higher you go, the people they're going to donate to your campaign. They're going to make sure you have enough money for consultants and TV spots. And at the end of the day, when you're finished, when you're over, you're going to get board directorships. You're going to get speaking fees, enormous speaking fees. They're going to buy all your ghostwritten books. You're going to be, if you're a senator, you're going to be worth in a good position in a committee, you're going to be worth tens of millions of dollars. If you're president, you're going to be worth hundreds of millions of dollars if you've worked for them. For whom you're working, okay? And this is why we have to, the kinds of revision, not just a reform, but entire revolution of the political process in this country, so that people, can run and get elected without going to the businessmen. This is what we have to have happen, but we're far from it. And none of the political parties are interested in changing that.
Well, the other thing, your thoughts were just about at the end of our rope, but where we started was, one of the places we started was with the issue of COVID, right? And it was, a narrative comes along. If you do this, you won't get COVID. And then the scientific data shows, okay, well, people that do this can still get COVID. So at that point, what you're supposed to say is, oh, we got new data. How can we introduce this data into our spectrum of policies and say, okay, we got all these policies. We now found out this. Well, there ain't no point in telling people that you're doing this to protect grandpa, or that if you can't fly on this plane or get in this train with people who aren't vaccinated, because we now know that it doesn't stop from transmission. So let's see what else we can do. Look at it, evaluate it, right? Okay. I say that to go here. The policies right now versus Russia, right? Regarding Ukraine. All right, we've got to do this to help Ukraine win. But we've got generals and people, and we all know, but people coming out saying there's no way Ukraine can win. But what are the policies? We've got to give them more weapons so that they'll have more leverage to bring Russia to the table. We've got to do this to bring Russia to the table. Well, all rational people who have evaluated this, Obama, way back when he was in office, said this is existential to the Russians. They have dominance in the region, military dominance. It's important to them. It ain't important to us. This ain't, we can't win this. Don't do it. So it ain't like they didn't have the information. They knew it. But yet and still, they still base their policies on the narrative. The narrative being, either Ukraine can win or that we can somehow force the Russians with Tomahawks or M777s or F-16s or something, you know, the latest thing we're going to get, new laptops. I don't know what the hell, you know what I mean? We're going to give them new helmets or something. Well, every other week, we're going to give them something. And that's going to be the one that forces the Russians, even though it's bullshit. So it's the same exact thing. We got a narrative. Based on that narrative, if we do X, we'll get the outcome we want. The situation changes under the narrative. So the narrative is now worthless, but we're going to continue on as though you're protecting grandpa, as though we can force the Russians to the table, as though, you know, as though we got to crack down on the Chinese because then they'll do this or that. You know what I mean? It's the same damn thing. Yes. And the Russians are surrounding every damn body, blowing the hell out of them. Thank God some of them are surrendering, but the Russians are now forming cauldrons. The whole thing's falling apart. But yet, we must still continue to send the next wonder weapon because then we'll have the leverages to stop the Russians once and for all, Jim.
Yeah, look, this is the epistemic capture, the epistemological problem. You can't get, as you say, you can't get out of the narrative. You have an attachment to the narrative that really isn't intellectual. It really isn't scientifically in the widest sense of the word. It's not grounded in looking for and understanding the truth. It's grounded in the fact that you must believe that you're the good guy and you're going to win. Really, fundamentally, that's at the end of the day. This is the American imperialist narrative in some sense. You know, we're the good guys and we must win. You know, it comes out of World War II movies in a certain way. But the point is, you are invested personally and psychologically in a narrative because the narrative is constructing a certain version of you for yourself that you want. I can't be a bad guy and I can't be losing as the bad guy, you know, and being deserved to be losing. So this is really, you know, it's very hard. And there are certain things, and the American exceptionalism is one of them. From Barack Obama, we are the lone indispensable nation. It's exactly the same thing that Trump is. Oh, we're the only nation in the world that counts. We're the cops of the world. We're the good guys. No, you're not. You weren't the good guy in Iraq or Syria or Lebanon. You weren't the good guy in Vietnam. You weren't the good guy in Korea. There was nothing. You know, this is not about that. It's nothing to do with that. And if you don't understand the game that you're playing, that you've been playing, then I'm not going to trust you again. This is one of these things. Sorry, but I can understand. I know I grew up in it. I believed it for some time, various elements of it. But the world needs to be changed. A country needs to be changed. There's no more time for believing that Donald Trump or Barack Obama is really an anti-establishment figure who's going to come in and give us the important things that we need. They're not, nobody's going to give it to you. You better goddamn get together and take it. So, you know, and it's hard to do. It's very hard to do, but you got to start thinking about it and drop the assumption of, you know what this basic premises of the narratives that we have. We're not the good guys in the world. We're not fighting for freedom and democracy. It always was baloney, and it is baloney now. And you know, this is what we got to start dealing with. And, you know, neither the Republicans or the Democrats represent the people. They represent their capitalist donors. And if we got to, then that's not going to change from some kind of negotiation within the party. It's not. It's not going to change by putting up a Donald Trump or Barack Obama. It's not. It's going to change by changing the political structure of the country entirely. It's a very big task, but that's where we're at. Because
let me give you one last thing, and I'll say this, and I haven't heard anybody else say this regarding the Charlie Kirk thing because of my background as an investigator. Something we learned recently that I would argue there has to be at least a consideration of charging this Mikey McCoy guy, Charlie Kirk's guy. Hear me out. You'd have to consider charging this guy with a crime at this point. I would. I'd bring him in.
Okay, give me
Put this investigation under me, and I'm bringing this guy in, and I'm consider charging him with a crime. I'm going to squeeze the daylights out of him. I'm going to interview all of the people that worked around him. Let me tell you why. Now, everybody out there, think about this. Tweet it out. Think about this. I listened to a audio the other day of a guy that worked for TPUSA, that worked for this guy, Mikey McCoy, right?
Mm-hmm.
And what he said was, after the shooting, Mikey McCoy came to all of them and said, don't say anything to anybody. Now, I'm paraphrasing, but it was, don't talk to anybody. Don't tell anybody anything you know. Mum's the word, right? Now, paraphrasing, but that's pretty much what he said. Oh, yeah, he came in there and he said, don't tell anybody anything. Doesn't that include the police?
Yeah.
And if you have information and or knowledge of information regarding this crime, and the police say to you, hey, Garland, yeah, you know anything? Nope. It's false, isn't it? Here's a picture of this guy. Do you know this guy?
Mm-hmm.
Where were you at the time of the shooting? What did you hear? I don't remember. I didn't hear anything. Because that's what Mikey McCoy told them. He
Mm-hmm.
said, I'm just going to change it to this and tell me I'm wrong. Don't cooperate with the police. If somebody says, if your boss, Jim, you taught at Columbia. If the provost, the president, whoever came to you and there was something happened, there was a terrorist incident, there was a murder, somebody was shot in your classroom, what do you do? The teacher next door, would somebody chase him into your classroom and shot him? And immediately the provost, the president, everybody runs into your office. Yeah, boy, that was terrible. They just shot old Bill. And he says, don't say anything to anybody about what you saw or heard today. That's illegal.
Yeah.
You are interfering with an election. With an investigation. That is a crime. You're hiding evidence. You're covering up evidence. That's a crime. So now, with that evidence, not Cash Patel, because somebody please tell me why a crime that was committed in Utah, that the Utah police has jurisdiction over, a murder in Utah. Salt Lake City, some guy gets strangled. FBI ain't coming in that. This is a murder in Utah. Utah State Police is supposed to be handling. Utah's Attorney General is supposed to be. The FBI is not supposed to be handling that. I don't understand why they're handling it. But whatever. Somebody tell me why the Utah State Police or the FBI, if they're for reason involved, didn't say, whoa, time out. Did anybody see this video? We now have evidence that Mikey McCoy told the people working for TPUSA not to share anything with the police, not to cooperate with the police. Somebody grab Mikey McCoy, you get him in my office today, and you tell him we're going to talk to him, and his ass is on the line, and we're going to charge him with a crime if he doesn't come clean, and we're going to bring everybody else in there. And oh, by the way, his employee, the one that said that we have videotape saying that, that's going to be the number one witness against him. And we're going to bring that guy in and we're going to interrogate him. And we're going to tell him, if you don't talk and if you don't say everything you know, we're charging you to. You see what I'm saying? You now, as the former investigator, I now have a method, a chain to go after the inside and find out who's dirty. Because obviously somebody, you see where I'm going with this, Jim? Mikey McCoy should be charged.
Well, I don't know. He should be. Look, he's going to say, "Oh, I didn't mean the cops." You can talk to the cops. He'll end up saying that.
He's going to have to say that to me because I'm interrogating him.
Questioned. He should certainly be questioned because, and using that also. What is it that you didn't want anybody to talk about? So all of these things should be questioned. Who were you talking to on the phone, walking away from that thing? I mean, I don't know.
Well, now at that point, guess what? At this point, let me add this too. Doesn't he become a suspect? Right? Well, now I'm going to the judge.
I mean, it's suspicious from a normal human point of view. It's suspicious behavior.
Now I'm going to the judge, and he's a person of interest, isn't he? Now I'm going to the judge, and I say, Your Honor, I need all kinds of stuff to allow me to look and see who the hell he was talking to.
Yeah.
I'm now going to look into this guy the last couple of days. I'm now going to look into the last couple of weeks. I'm going to look into everything. He is now a person of interest and a critical person of interest in the investigation. I'm going to start interrogate people. I'm going to interrogate him. I'm going to look into his background. Did he get any big chunks of money recently in his bank account? I'm looking into this guy.
Yeah.
If I want to know what happened.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
I mean, Garland Nixon was a professional investigator, and you can see as soon as I looked at that, I'm like, that's a road we can go down. Why is it that the FBI and the rest of these people can't figure out what some schmuck from Glen Burnie, Maryland can see screaming out and staring at me? Oh, you got to go after this guy now. You got to interrogate him. You got to threaten to charge him.
Yeah. Look, I know that is one of the weirdest things I've ever seen. Look, we're friends, but we're not as close as Charlie Kirk and Mikey McCoy were. You know, they worked every day together. They worked on things all the time. If I was standing right behind you and you got shot in the fucking head, excuse my French, and I just went, oh, and walked away. I mean, it's like, what? I mean, it's unimaginable. It's unimaginable. So, you know, it's extremely suspicious behavior. And somebody's got to question about it. You got to ask questions about it. But the problem is, what can we say? They seem to have made up their minds, and they don't want to be pushed off the track that they're on. And it's the unwillingness to know and the unwillingness to learn. That's what you're talking about. You know, you get new data, you learn something new, you find out something new. They're unwilling to do that. They have their agenda, and they're going to keep. Let
me add this from a person with a history in this background. Here's the other suspicious thing. Okay, let's say we have a drowning and the body's missing. Every single morning, the family calls, have you recovered the body? You know, when I had that a lot on the bay, because the bay, we got a lot of water, and, you know, you got that, and now I'm in charge of the scene. The family, every day, they're calling. Have you seen old Bob? Have you brought Bob? Has anybody recovered Bob? No, we'll tell you soon. And as soon as you recover him, you call him. And if, for some reason, I don't know, I guess the family needs closure. They go, oh, thank goodness. Thank you very much, officer. I'm so glad they found Bob. And yes, the body is going to be taken here. Here's where you can go to identify the body, whatever. Okay. The family always wants to know, if there's a murder, did you catch the guy? Are you sure it's him? Erica Kirk. Hey. We got some guy, but things look kind of suspicious. No. Let's not ask any more questions. They have the guy. We know he's the guy. Don't even ask, could it possibly be somebody else? We're guaranteed it's the guy. That runs afoul of everything I saw in 27 years in law enforcement. Every single time, the family would be the first to say, you got the guy who did it. And if there's any possibility, the family's going to be screaming, wait a minute, are you sure you got the right guy?
Yeah.
We want to know who killed old Bob. Was this the guy? And soon as things, the family will be screaming, they want justice. They want closure. Erica Kirk apparently already has closure. She knows who did it, even though we don't.
Candace Owens is saying, if Erica tells me to stop, I'll stop. And Erica hasn't told her to stop. That's what
interesting. Huh. Well, maybe Erica knows to say what we know. If she starts asking too many questions, maybe some trans activist will be peeping that through a scope at her too.
I know, or maybe she just, you know, it would be too. She doesn't want to be known that I told her to stop.
Yeah,
stop asking questions. It's, but it's a hell of a situation. It's really one of the weirdest things ever. And as you say, they're not succeeding in closing it down. It's people are going full on about it, and nobody can believe the story they're giving. Whatever the story is, it's not the one they're giving. I mean, they're going to have to come up with some weird evidence that nobody's seen to persuade anybody that this guy did this.
I can't see how you can take that case to court, much less get a conviction.
I have any idea how they're going to do it.
I don't know, Jim. Good luck if you tell me you can figure out how to stick a World War II rifle with a scope hanging off of it down your freaking pants so nobody can see it, and then jump off a building and go running around. Yeah. Theoretically, it's possible, I guess, but in theory, it's possible. In practical application, everybody knows it's impossible. It's only possible in theory. That's the only place you could do that in theory. You know, you couldn't even do it in a lab. But there we go, Jim. Well, thank you very much. Certainly appreciate you taking time out of your busy Sunday morning / afternoon to discuss these important issues, Jim. Where can everybody go to find the good works of Jim Kavanaugh?
Well, please go to my Substack. Also follow me on Twitter, X at the polemicist _. You can see me also have a YouTube channel, but everything is posted on the Substack. So that's the best place to find me. Please subscribe for free or otherwise. Go to buy me a coffee, or if you like what I say, give me a tip. And always pleasure talking to Garland. We always have fun.
Well, thank you very much. Let's see if I can possibly look and see if we got any super chats. If we do, I only saw one somewhere down there, and it is hard to find. There was one. I always like to thank everybody, but for God's sake, my super chats are... wait a minute. I think I got it, Jim. Thank you to Do Panic, Amicus Curiae, Garland.
Okay.
All right. Thanks a lot, everybody. All right. Thanks, everybody. Look, as you guys all know, everything's going across the bottom there, whether it's Cash App or PayPal, Buy Me a Coffee, Patreon. Thank you very much to my Patreon and Buy Me a Coffee people. And, it's a great place to donate if you decide to donate. Certainly there is my, for snail mail, there's my P.O. box, as you all know. Next Thursday, I got my visa. I am heading for Moscow to see what's happening there for a week. So thanks a lot, everybody, for supporting that and donating towards that trip. And I'm looking forward to it. And I guess I'll come back. Boy, I'll really be called. I'll have like 4 black Suburbans following me around all the time, which will be good because if I have a flat, those guys can come out and help. That's what I'm thinking.
That's right.
All right, everybody, share this on all your social media platforms. We're out.